Welcome to the Reasonable Southerner podcast. The South isn't all magnolias in the moonlight, but neither is it all racism and violence. We are just like you. My name is Frances Coleman. I share my insights about my life and yours. Here is a letter that I never wrote to my now adult children, but one that I should have written. My dearest children, this letter contains an apology and a sincere wish that you will turn out to be better parents than I was. Not that I was a slacker. I challenge you to name kids whose parents were wittier, more interesting, and better able to balance your thirst for independence with your need to be corralled. Not to mention kids who had livelier discussions at the dining room table. It was fun to watch the two of you gradually realize that other kids' families didn't talk, laugh, converse, argue, and debate the way all of us did. And it was fun to watch y'all interact with your older relatives and our adult friends. Though not precocious or bratty, you were very comfortable with grown-ups, having always been included in our regular Saturday night get-togethers with friends and family. Meanwhile, y'all had not just the necessities of life, but also many of life's comforts and privileges. You went to good schools. You each had a car to drive, though they were used. Only Mama got the new cars. You had a supportive, extended family, and your friends were always welcome in our home. So I'm not apologizing for any of that. What I'm trying to say is that today, more than 25 years after you were adolescents, I'm sorry that I didn't talk more openly about, sex. I grew up in a pretty buttoned-up family, to put it charitably, so I had to learn what I needed to know from books, which was very fitting considering that my mother was a research librarian. Thus, when it came time to talk to y'all about the facts of life, I opened your bedroom doors, chunked a book onto your beds, and scurried away before you could notice I had even been there. Thankfully, your father was, and is, more open, so you seem to have navigated your teenage and early adult years with success. I'm blushing at the mere thought of talking about your love lives. Jokes and embarrassment aside, the truth is I did you a disservice. Because I wasn't approachable about matters of the heart and the body, we didn't talk about the issues that are now lumped under one category, Me Too. Which means, daughter, that I didn't talk to you about the need to be cautious and to trust your instincts when it comes to personal safety. We didn't discuss sexual assault, sexual aggression, or no means no. Nor did we talk about what to do if you were threatened or assaulted. I'm thankful, of course, that your personality cannot be described as passive. I'm sure you've been treated with disrespect along the way, and I hate that. Still, I should have talked to you about this. And son, you and I didn't talk about what it means to be a young man in our modern world. We didn't discuss the need to respect yourself and the people around you, including women. Nor did we talk about being direct, open, and honest with intimate partners and understanding what no means no means. We also didn't address the fact that some women are manipulative and capable of lying about relationships and how to detect and avoid relationships with such women. Those conversations, if I had initiated them with the two of you, could have led to broader discussions of gender stereotypes and cliches. We could have talked about the things that make people strong, such as a good moral foundation, an inquisitive mind, self-respect, and respect for others. We could, and should have, explored how often over the years you've heard people snicker that boys will be boys as a way of excusing drunkenness or sexual aggression. Nobody, drunk or sober, can make excuses for mistreating someone else. We also could have talked about the stereotypes of women as fast, loose, and easy, and the assertion that everybody's doing it, so you should too, even if you barely know and care nothing about the other person. The one thing that I know both your father and I told you is this: never ignore your own good judgment. When that voice in your head says, "Don't do this," I know we told you to listen and act accordingly. I thank God every day that y'all are bright, thoughtful, well-educated, and ethical people who are able to reject such attitudes. Maybe those lively dinner-time conversations played a more significant role in shaping your characters than I realized at the time. In fact, as I look back on our child-rearing years, I think your father and I would agree that one of the best things we did was spend time with the two of you, talking about the world around us. It's probably the number one piece of advice I would give young parents. No, wait, it's the number two piece of advice I would give them. The number one piece of advice would be, talk to your children about their sexuality, their bodies, their safety, their integrity, and the importance of healthy, intimate relationships. Do not send them out into the world unarmed for the reality that there are people who would take advantage of them, abuse them, manipulate them, and shame them. If you don't believe it, just look at the thousands of women who've told their stories publicly since the Me Too movement began. I recognize the possibility that a woman might make up a claim of abuse, but in general, count me among the believers. Since the Harvey Weinstein story broke several years ago, we've seen women in all kinds of careers and professions feel empowered to share their experiences. We've also seen many of the accused men forced to acknowledge their bad and sometimes criminal behavior. Most recently, we watched the governor of New York resign because of more than a dozen credible accusations of sexual assault. And look at the politicians, the entertainers, the others who have quit their jobs in disgrace and even gone to prison because their shameful deeds were revealed. The stories and testimonies of victimized women ring painfully true, whether the events they describe are recent or decades old. The perpetrators were sometimes men in positions of trust, ministers, doctors, lawyers, relatives, with whom they felt safe. Other times, the victimizers were co-workers, supervisors, or business owners. Their victims were usually afraid to resist or report the abuse, and perhaps lacked the self-confidence and self-awareness that it takes to stand up for yourself and say, "No, this is wrong. No, you can't treat me this way. And no, this is not acceptable behavior." Now that our society is addressing these issues, my hope is that we can move on to looking at deeper issues. It's time to concentrate on teaching our children, everybody's children, to treat other people, male and female, with courtesy and respect, not just at work, but everywhere. It starts with teaching young people early about their bodies, their minds, and their spirits. If these conversations about sexuality after all these years make you blush and even squirm, my dear children, then so be it. A little blushing and squirming never killed anybody, or so I hear. Love, Mama. I'm Frances Coleman. I've worked for newspapers for more than 45 years, from Texas to my native Louisiana, and finally to my home near Mobile, Alabama. I've been a reporter, an editorial writer, a columnist, and an editorial page editor. I've commented on the BBC, been a guest on the Rachel Maddow Show, and had my column distributed nationwide. If you like this podcast, please follow it. It's free, and even if you don't like it, I hope you'll find it thought-provoking.